Hi, I'm Olanike Adelakun, and I'll be talking about the rise in surrogacy in Africa. So basically, the journey of a girl into womanhood in Africa entails uh, both formal and informal education, with the attention on the informal education entailing how to make a home and how to carry out domestic duties and how to be a good mother. So from birth, a girl is trained based on social stereotyping or gender stereotyping to fit into a particular role which prepares her for motherhood. And where it happens that at the stage when this girl or lady is expected to begin the journey into motherhood, if she is unable to do that, then she is tagged as barren, which comes with a lot of social vices like discrimination, stigmatization, and this has pushed a lot of women into extreme measures in order to become women, in order to become mothers, rather. So, and it is not as if infertility does not affect the man, but the attention is more on women such that when a woman is unable to procreate, that woman is seen as infertile without necessarily paying attention to the infertility of the man. So, in a situation where this happens, the burden lies more on the woman to find a solution to her infertility with little or no support from the society. Rather, the man is encouraged to take another wife or to get somebody, a young girl out there to impregnate and keep the family line going. So, just like every other part of the world, the infertility rate in Africa keeps dropping, and it is presently at 4.27 women, children per woman, and this is projected to drop to 4.05 by the end of 2015. And in order to become a mother, a lot of measures have been taken by women, like I said earlier. This includes formal and informal adoption. The formal adoption is going through the process of law to adopt a child. And then the informal adoption is naturally what we call customary adoption, where you just taking a child of a relative and you do not sever the parental ties completely, but you just take that child to be your own and you raise the child as yours. Unfortunately, this is not seen as a cure to infertility in Africa because the emphasis is on the ability of a woman to have her own biological child. As a result of this, customary surrogacy has been part of the African tradition since inception. It's just that it was not so popularized compared to the formal surrogacy that we have here. So the process of customary surrogacy in most African countries depends on the particular culture of that society. A popular one in a place like Nigeria is where the woman is unable to procreate. Then the family, the woman herself, goes out to get another wife for the husband. She pays the bride price and goes through the process of getting the woman married to her husband. And when this is done, any child that the woman gives birth to is seen as the child of the infertile woman. In a place like South Africa, there is a culture where an infertile woman's family has a responsibility of giving a sister or a cousin or, that is seen as a sister of the infertile woman to the husband as compensation for the infertility of the wife. So this culture varies, and this is the traditional, the customary mode of surrogacy, where another woman gives birth to the husband, and this child is treated as the biological child or as the child of the infertile woman. Again, medical technology has actually enabled a lot of infertile women to become parents we have the IVF, the GIFT. So by means of these assisted reproductive technologies, a lot of women have been able to achieve their dreams of becoming natural parents. And one of these assisted reproductive technology that is trending now and that is on the rise and popular is surrogacy. So surrogacy is the means by which another woman is brought in to carry the baby in her womb on behalf of the infertile parents or the infertile woman. So naturally, the sperm of the husband is used to fertilize the egg of the woman or a donor egg and then implanted into another woman who is not the natural gestational mother. So this embryo is implanted into the woman and she gives birth to the child and hands over the child to the commissioning parents. Now, there has been a lot of argument around this. That okay, the child ends up having two or three mothers because if the commissioning mother is the egg donor, then the child ends up having two mothers. But if the commissioning mother still uses a donor egg from another woman, and then the embryo is implanted into another woman. Then that brings in three women in the process of giving birth to that child. But legally, most laws that recognizes surrogacy actually confers legal parentage on the commissioning mother as the legal mother of the child. So, uh, the global trend in surrogacy is a cause for attention, especially in Africa, where it has not become so popular. So both commercial and altruistic surrogacy is popular in a place like in Russia, where people can just choose to go for whatever they like. In North America, especially most part of Canada, recognizes only altruistic surrogacy. Then in a place like in some parts of the United States, commercial surrogacy is permitted. In some other parts, altruistic surrogacy is permitted, while in some places it is not regulated and it is banned in some states. So, which means there is no federal law that regulates surrogacy, and each state has the duty to make a law to regulate surrogacy. And then in some parts of Europe, the same thing happens. It is unregulated in some parts, it is regulated, prohibited, outrightly banned in some parts. It is left, some parts also regulate commercial surrogacy, while some parts regulate autistic surrogacy. So by commercial surrogacy, I mean, this is a situation where the surrogate, that is the surrogate mother, is paid a form of compensation for acting as a surrogate. And this also has generated a lot of criticism. Like this amounts to baby selling, this amounts to commercialization of motherhood or of the family setting of procreation. And this has been argued to be a violation of the rights of the surrogate mother. At the same time, in places where commercial surrogacy is permitted, there have been a lot of arguments in support and against. One of such arguments is that the woman has reproductive autonomy and should be able to decide what she does with her body. And if she chooses to commercialize her womb in order to make money and then to assist another person, then so be it. It is her body. Then she should be able to dictate what happens to the body. Then, in major part of Africa now, which is the focus of this discussion, apart from South Africa, which only permits altruistic surrogacy, every other part of Africa does not have any specific law on surrogacy. So the situation is so uncertain in every other part of Africa, and there is evidence that commercial surrogacy is actually practiced in Nigeria and in Kenya. And cross-border surrogacy, that is a situation where women leave the shores of their country to act as surrogate mothers, is also evident both in Nigeria and in Kenya. At the point where India used to be a hub of commercial surrogacy until 2015, when the government banned commercial surrogacy especially to foreigners. So at that point, a way by which fertility clinics in India tried to bypass the law was to bring surrogate mothers from Kenya, fertilize them, implant the embryo in them, and then get them out of India after some weeks of the gestational period, and they give birth in India, and then the commissioning couple or parents are able to claim the child in Kenya. So that gives a room for exploitation and exposes the surrogate mothers to a lot of vulnerability because now they're crossing the shores of their country to act as surrogate mother, and at the same time, there is no legal protection for them. So the uncertainty and the lack of uniformity in what country permits surrogacy and what should be done in order to make sure that people are not exploited remains a cause of concern. And the fact that the moral aspect of surrogacy has been brought in to argue for and against surrogacy has made it impossible to have an international regulation or international convention or international consensus on how to regulate cross-border surrogacy. Presently, the A Convention on Private International Law has been sitting as an expert group that has been sitting and working on how to regulate this. But this has been a difficult task, especially when it comes to issues like parentage and having countries to recognize surrogacy. For instance, if you have a surrogacy in a country where it is permitted and you want to take that child to a country like France where it is outrightly banned, then that child will not be recognized as the child of the commissioning parents because their law does not recognize that. So this brings about a lot of legal obstacles. And as a result of this, there is no uniform platform, uniform legal framework for surrogacy or for international surrogacy. So coming back to Africa, just like there is no international framework for surrogacy yet, there is also no, in fact, I don't think African Union is paying attention to what may happen with the surrogacy market in Africa. And then with the proposed ban of commercial surrogacy in India, currently the bill has been passed at the lower legislative house and has been approved at the upper legislative house. So if the bill becomes law in India, which had been the hub of reproductive tourism, especially in terms of surrogacy by foreigners, then the there's likelihood that attention will shift to Africa, especially because this market is highly unregulated in Africa. And there is no outright ban of surrogacy in Africa, which makes it a fertile ground for commercial surrogacy or any other form of surrogacy. All what the prospective parents need to do is just to make sure they have a valid contract and then hide under the laws of the contract of the African country to enforce their surrogacy contract. So, and this is what has been happening in Nigeria. We see a lot of people commissioning surrogacy. And then if there happens to be a hitch, all they have to do is to ensure that, okay, all the valid elements of a contract are present. And this is done with the consent of the surrogate mother without paying attention to the exploitation that may actually occur in terms of bargaining power, in terms of protection uh, from all complications that may arise as a result of the pregnancy, because you get to manipulate a lot of hormones and expose the surrogate mother to medical risk. And then without a law regulating or protecting the surrogate mother to ensure that there's adequate insurance in case of medical complications or where the commissioning parent chooses to abandon the children, maybe the woman ends up giving birth to multiple children and or maybe a child with disability. And this happens to be one of the challenges that have been experienced in India that led to where they are in India today. So, in the absence of a regional legal framework to also make sure that women are protected, then Africa is at risk of exposing a woman to a lot of vulnerability in terms of this market. So, um, so as it is now, to sum it up, in terms of global regulation, this is lacking. In terms of regional regulation, this is also lacking. Then in terms of national regulation, it's only South Africa within the continent that has any law that to regulate surrogacy, and it only permits autistic surrogacy where you don't get compensated. So you just do it on humanitarian ground. Unfortunately, the law in South Africa did not also extend to this position on international surrogacy. So the position is still unclear if a South African or a person domiciled in South Africa who is actually eligible to autistic surrogacy chooses to go out of South Africa to to commission surrogacy and then brings the child to South Africa. This is also this will bring about a bit of complication because the law does not cover this. So in a place like Nigeria, where surrogacy is rapidly gaining ground, and women are engaging in this just based on contractual basis, and there is no form of protection. An attempt at regulating surrogacy did not fall through, and the bill had lapsed at the National Assembly of Nigeria. Or in a place like Kenya, where the women are even crossing the shores of Kenya, the borders of Kenya, to act as surrogate mothers without any form of protection for them, and every other part of Africa where it is uncertain whether you can go to that place to commission surrogacy and what will be the legal implication of such an agreement. So this this is something that African countries or the African Union has to look into. And the major challenge is that the practice process in Africa includes the legal challenge, which includes the drafting of the agreement. What are those terms and clauses that are contained in drafting the agreement? Does the surrogate mother have a say in what goes in and out of the contract? Or the lawyers that draft the agreement for the commissioning couples just focus on protecting the interest of the person paying the money? How would that contract be recognized by courts? Because each country, even within Africa, has a moral grounds upon which contracts can be nullified. For instance, if it is seen as being against public policy, then such a contract will not be recognized. So, what is the status of recognizing a surrogacy contract in a country where such contract is expressly not regulated? Then, what another legal challenge is the protection or the violation of human rights of persons that may be involved in the surrogacy agreement or practice, including the unborn child uh, that's that unborn, or including the child that will be born out of the surrogacy arrangement. Then another major challenge is the nationality and legal parentage of the child. If a foreigner from a country where surrogacy is banned comes to an African country to commission surrogacy, and that child is not recognized in the commission in the country of origin of the commissioning parents, then what happens? Especially in a place, maybe for instance in Nigeria, where intercountry adoption is not permitted. So it becomes impossible to even adopt that child in Nigeria and take the child out of Nigeria. So what happens to that child in terms of nationality and legal parentage? So it also exposes the child to risk and then to the risk of being stateless. Then there are also ethical concerns in terms of surrogacy practice in Africa, in terms of gamete donation. What laws regulate gametes? It is popular in Nigeria now to walk into a fertility clinic and just donate your ovum or to donate sperm and just get money for it without paying attention to the procedures, without proper counseling of what the consequences may be. And then with uh, excessive manipulation of the gamete in order to produce more ovum. There have been a lot of media reports on this. Until date, there has not been any strict or a strict legal action taken to make sure that this market is regulated. Again, there is a possibility of fetal manipulation in terms of sex selection and the likes. Then there is also a trending case, even in IVF, of excessive implantation. The average uh, embryo that should be implanted should be about 2 or 3. But we have situations where you even have up to 6 being implanted, and this endangers the life of the surrogate mother. We also have issues of embryo storage, sale, and transfer. So there are also ethical concerns around that. Then there are ethical concerns around informed consent. How do you obtain this informed consent? How do you ensure that the client or the patient are adequately informed of uh, of what they're about to get into in order to make an unbiased decision? Again, there's also the sociocultural concerns, like stigmatization of surrogate mothers. Some tag them as prostitutes, some tag them as outcasts. So, how do the society deal with that? Then we have stereotyping again. That is another concern that has to be dealt with. Then there is also the religious concern, with some religions coming out to say, no, this is prohibited, this is outright sin. And then with some permitting it on certain grounds. For instance, under the Islamic rule, you can only engage in surrogacy if it is surrogacy is outrightly not allowed. But some scholars have argued that if one of the wives, if the man has multiple wives, and then one of the wife is infertile, and another of the wife is the one that will act as a surrogate mother, then it will not fall outside. It will not fall within the ambit of adultery. Now, if a woman in an Islamic love marriage or setting or family setting chooses to engage a surrogate mother, then that is seen as adultery on the part of the husband because the garment will be planted in another woman that is not part of the family as in terms of marriage. So these are concerns that needs to be paid attention to in Africa. And then in terms of projection of the growth in the surrogacy market, there is a need to start paying attention to these practices in Africa because here we know it started in South Africa, which is duly regulated and spread to Nigeria. Now it is really gaining ground in Kenya as well. And there is a tendency that this will continue until it gets across Africa, just like intercountry adoption. And if attention is not paid to this now, the damage would have been done before we start paying attention to this. And it is projected that the market will be worth over 2.5 billion in terms of revenue uh, in no the market is presently worth like 1.3 billion in 2020, and it is projected that this will be worth 33.5 billion in 2027. So this is really a cause for concern. And the Global Market Insight report on the growth in market rate of surrogacy is well detailed in terms of what to expect in this market. So surrogacy has actually come to stay in a way. So, what is the way forward for Africa? I think this is a time the African Union needs to pay attention to surrogacy as a means of becoming parents. And there's a need for African leaders to come together to draft, at least just like the African Union took a position on protection of internally displaced persons, there's a need to start paying attention to take a position on surrogacy on the continent. What form of surrogacy should be permitted? How do you regulate it? How do you protect Africans from unnecessary exploitation and vulnerability? And all those stuff. And there's a need for each African nation to also sit around this and start taking decisions or steps to protect African women and prospective children from unnecessary abuses or violation of their rights in terms of surrogacy. Thank you.